Give that just a second. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the December live chat. I'm Rebecca. There's still plenty of time to get your questions in for today's chat. Send them to DOC_questions. We have executive staff from every division here to answer your questions. And to protect your privacy, I'll only read your question. I'll never read your name. If you're not sure if your question is right for this forum, it's okay. Go ahead and send it in. Let's talk about it. Now, if you ever want to go back and re-watch any of these chats, I always post the recording on the front page of DocNet under Executive Director Live Chats. And as always, if you do not hear your question today, it could be because our directors need just a little bit more time to form a response, but rest assured, I'm still going to ask your questions. I'm just going to move it to the next month to give our directors just a little bit more time. All that said, good morning, Mr. Stansel.
Good morning, Rebecca. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'd like to start off today's chat with a question we received multiple times about news agencies across the state that continue to talk about the DOJ reviewing operations in our DOC facilities. What impact will there be on our line staff, and should we be expecting an audit, and what would you expect the outcome of that audit to be?
All right, so first of all, happy holidays to everyone that's tuning in. It's that time of the year we talk about it often. It's that time of the year where, it's a time for us to kind of reflect and get together with loved ones and take a part of all the festive activities. Unfortunately, this is one of those things, and I was speaking to a group about it earlier this morning. Unfortunately, the media is very quick to report negativity about the Department of Corrections and not understanding what we do. And you can't go to any media site now, whether it's social media or actual media, and type in CDOC and not hear something about Tina Peters or DOJ investigation or starving kids. So I want to kind of touch on all three of them, and then this will address the question as well. So first of all, we'll start off with the DOJ investigation. This is not the first time the department will be subjected to a DOJ investigation. I think there's 3 or 4 instances where we've gone through this. I will leave it up to each of you to look at the timing of these investigations as to the other thing in relation to the other things we got going on. I, as the director, am not overly concerned about this DOJ investigation. Now, with that being said, do I believe that we'll find things? Absolutely. In any correctional system you go to and you investigate, there's always little things that we can do better. And we, look forward to those opportunities to do better. This one is a little concerning because of, and when I say concerning, the outcome is a little concerning because of all of the other stuff that's going on. If you've been following the media at all, and this ties into the second piece that I want to talk about. If you've been following the media at all, there's a great interest in one of the incarcerated individuals we have in our care. And there's a lot of interest and a lot of requests to move her, requests to let her go, requests. There's a presidential pardon out there. But let me just say this for the record. We have not released her because the president does not have the authority to pardon her. The president currently doesn't have the authority to pardon state crimes. Now, do we know this is going to play out in court? And whatever the court decides, that's what we as the agency will honor. But until there's a court order or a new statute of court or guidance that's changing the current guidance of the president does not have the authority to pardon state offenses. So that individual is here for state charges. She was convicted in a state court. So therefore is doing state time. So that's why we haven't released her. There again, I'll let you draw your own emphasis whether that incident is related to the DOJ investigation. There's a lot of things in the media right now, and you'll be seeing some stuff come out. There's a lot of threats of marshals coming and storm the facility, and January 6ers coming and storm the facility. Interestingly enough, I got a letter from this individual's attorney this morning, basically saying that they are not condoning any of that, any of those tweets that you see out there or social media posts, that is not something that's coming from this individual's team. They don't condone it. They're not supporting it. They're not encouraging it. The other thing I want to tell you is there's multiple conversations daily with several external stakeholders to the DOC, to include the Gov's office, to include DPS, Department of Public Safety, to include the Pueblo County Sheriff's Office. There's a lot of people involved in monitoring this situation. So I want staff to know you're safe. We are listening not just to what is being posted, but we're listening in other means of all kinds of chatter that's out there. And if there's anything that's significant that will require us to increase our security around that facility or any other facility, we will quickly do. But there's a lot of people that are assisting us through this time. This is a very unprecedented time. You look back in history, there's never been an instance where a sitting president has tried to pardon a state case. So this is a very uncharted waters for the corrections field. As I've told you all in the past, I'm part of what we call the Correctional Leaders Association. I was just in a conference there last week where this was discussed on a national level. So those individuals also are providing support to us. So any questions you have on that, feel free to reach out. And then the last thing that you'll probably see in the media right now is there was some allegations that we were underfeeding the youth at YOS. I can assure you that the caloric intake for the youthful individuals are within USDA guidelines, and that is what we base all of our meals on. There's several policies out there that we have in the department that manages how we come up with our menus, how the caloric intake and all that. So I'd encourage you, if you have questions about that, to review those policies. But I can tell you, we are within guidelines of what USDA is recommending for those age groups. Not just the YOS, but at all of the facilities we are in. That is something that is closely monitored. That is something that our departmental dietitians and Dr. Mall is involved in, clinical services all involved in making sure that we're meeting the requirements and all that for all of our facilities. So those are the three big things that are in the media right now. And I'm willing to answer any questions you might have. If you can't get them in now, feel free to reach out to me. But I assure you I'm not overly concerned about the DOJ investigation. I'm concerned that there may be some politics involved in it, which, it is what it is. It's kind of the world we're living in right now, and we will navigate through those as they arise. So it was a very long answer to probably a short question, but I thought it was important to try to cover all those areas.
Thank you, Director. Talk to us about what it means to us if we're contacted from the media. What would we do if we were contacted from them?
Yeah, and I'll kick this off, and Alondra, please feel free to jump in. I always, even before this, during my time in the Bureau of Prisons, it was always my belief, and I was PIO trained in the feds, but unless that was my specific role, it was always my personal policy of my own is to not engage with the media. Alondra Gonzalez is our PIO. She has a strong team that we built up for many reasons. One, because the department had gone a very long time with only one person in that role, trying to cover internal comms, trying to cover external comms, trying to put up fires as they come. And that's just a lot to do for one person to do in a department that 17,000 plus incarcerated individuals, 6,500 plus staff, plus the 19 parole officers, plus all the parolees. So it's just a lot for one person to do. So we built that team up, and they're doing an amazing job of handling all the media fires. But my personal advice to everyone is, if you're contacted by the media, drop Alondra's name or drop the PIO's team name, because that's really what you should be talking to the media. And it's not that, you guys know I love for every staff to have a voice, but when it comes to the media, there are traps that you can fall into when you're answering the media, because if you're not looking at it from the 30,000 view that Alondra looks at it, this media outlet can be asking this question. If you answer this way, then another media outlet could be asking another question. And whether you're in that specific role or not as the expert or speaking on behalf of the department, if you answer the questions, you're unofficially speaking on behalf of the department, and that can be very problematic for all of us. So, Alondra, would you like to add anything to that?
No, I'll add briefly, Andre. We just sent out just a reminder email with my contact information, the PIOs and the comms team's contact information. And something that, being in this role, I've seen is they all have my contact information. It's on the public facing website. It's very accessible. So oftentimes you see the media reaching out because they are looking for a specific sound bite or to kind of get you in a position where, they may edit it or get bad information so they can run their story. So again, we don't shy away from the media. Like as a department, we're very aware how important their role is to be transparent as a state agency. However, we have to also be mindful of what information and how we're providing that. So again, if you ever have any questions, just please call me. It occurred this morning. Somebody was able to just get me on the phone, and we were able to navigate that situation. So that's all I'll add. Thank you.
Thank you both. Let's switch gears a little bit and talk about general updates on the cultural assessments. Do you have any updates on that? And will there be a schedule coming out?
Yeah, so there will be. So this cultural, for those that don't know what the cultural assessment is, this is a mechanism for us to try to gauge how we're doing culturally in the agency. So once again, I encourage everyone, if your institution is going through a cultural assessment, use your voice. Even if you're not one that is listed as an interview, and the new policy I just signed kind of goes into how interviews are, how do we pick how many we're going to interview, things like that. But if you are at an institution and there's a culture assessment going on, there's nothing wrong with you stopping that team and saying, hey, I would like to talk to you all, or hey, I have something I might want to add. The reason we don't put out a schedule is because we want to get real data. Like for instance, I've been doing this for a couple of weekends of holidays, and even in the feds, you can always tell when someone was coming to visit, because you would smell all this fresh wax and fresh paint, because we're trying to paint this picture of this is how things are. And oftentimes we damage ourselves by doing that, especially when we have high profile visitors like legislators. If they're coming to a facility, we need them to see what staff see every day. So when you paint this facade that everything smells like wax and paint and everyone's all, holding hands and singing Kumbaya, that's not reality. So that's the same philosophy I have with culture assessments. And it's not that I think anybody would be deceitful and try to change things just because we're doing this assessment, but I want to get a real snapshot of how things are going day to day there. And the best way to do that is to not put that schedule out too far in advance, because the least notice you have, the more authentic responses we're going to get on both sides, positive and negative. So that's why you won't see a schedule come out that'll tell you this facility is going through a cultural assessment, next June. We won't do that. We want to be able to, we have a schedule of where they're going to be, and we maintain that with the cultural assessment team as well as with the exec team to a certain extent. But putting out a schedule of when and specific dates and all that, no, we won't be putting that out. But I encourage people to go and look at the new policy that's signed that talks about cultural assessment. And if you have any questions, Jessica Stats is the cultural assessment team leader that you can refer to any questions you have about that.
Thank you so much. And I believe the policy you're referencing is 1450-61 for anyone that is listening that would like to reference that. Let's move on back to our Director of Communications and DEIB, Director Gonzalez. Good morning again to you. I'm continuing to see a discrepancy in data reported to the public via our statistic page on the DOC website. Given the ongoing scrutiny from JBC and other legislatures, I'm curious, who is checking this information and ensuring it's accurate?
Thank you, Rebecca, and happy holidays to everybody. This is a really good question. Thank you for flagging. I think last live chat, it was also brought up. So we did go through it. just for some context there, that a lot of those dashboards are fed through federal data. So unless they update their data, then ours isn't going to be updated. However, we can't catch everything. So if you are looking at something that is completely inaccurate, please flag that for us. Send me an email if you feel comfortable. If not, please send an email to the router that you submit your questions in if you'd like to stay anonymous. I may be missing something, but we just looked at it last month to make sure everything was accurate, and it does look like it's accurate on our end. So let me know if I'm missing something.
Thank you. Has the department considered a proactive media strategy, like pitching stories about the good work that DOC is doing?
Yes, we absolutely are. Now that, as Andre stated, we are fully staffed on the comms team. We are shifting to be a lot more proactive in positive storytelling. We know how important that is to our staff. We know that we do incredible work behind the walls and in the community. So that is a priority that we're trying to do right now. We have a few ideas. So as we start to roll those out, please be on the lookout for comms around it. If there's anything that is good or positive that's happening in your facilities or in your communities, please send us an email or let your facility PIO know so they can get in contact with us and we can get creative on how we pitch those. One of the challenges, and we've said this multiple times, you know, the media really does like to focus on negative storytelling. Those are always going to be the clickbaits for them. So if there's anything we can do proactively, we absolutely will. Also, make sure you look at our monthly newsletter. We do try really hard to recognize our staff, even internally. And then, like I mentioned before, we do have a few ideas that we're trying to launch in the near future for positive storytelling.
Several years ago, the department sent a survey out to get the population to get their thoughts on how we refer to those in our care. What's the official way to address them?
Awesome. And a great question again. I think we were asked this last live chat, but the department's always moving towards person first language whenever possible. While you still will see statutory terms like offender or in legal documents, we always encourage staff to use terms like incarcerated individuals, people in our care, or just by their first name. So in our daily operations. So this aligns with our goal of humanizing the corrections environment. Again, you will still see some statutory language that requires us to say offenders or inmates, but we will try to use people, person first language whenever possible.
Thank you so much. Let's switch gears and talk to our Deputy Director of Clinical Services, Lenny Woodson. Good morning.
Good morning, Rebecca.
We have a couple questions left over from last month. I'll start with those and then we'll dive into this month. Is it possible to cross-train in areas outside of clinical services, or is it only intradepartmental?
I'm glad this question was asked. I think cross-training is a great way to learn about different areas of the department. So the short answer is yes. If you're interested in taking part in the process, AR 1500-1 is the AR that you need to look into. Of course, you'll need approval from your direct supervisor, and cross-training cannot account for more than 25% of your annual mandatory training hours.
Will DOC pay for employees to get their CCHP certification, which includes the $230 application and examination fee?
So currently, no. Our tuition reimbursement policy focuses in on reimbursing continuing education credits and the coursework that leads up to certifications and licensure, but that doesn't include the actual license or certification at this time.
Thank you. Director Monday sent out an email detailing where clinical positions have been reallocated. Explain how it makes sense to turn clinical positions into HR positions. Clinical staff are struggling to provide care, yet we are turning FTE into positions for other areas.
And I think it might be helpful, Rebecca, if we combine this question with the next one, if you want to read that one too. I think they're pretty
absolutely
related.
Yeah, absolutely. Is anything being done to address the burnout among clinical staff? And how are we, sorry about that, how are we working to increase nursing full-time employees to provide adequate resources and stop the burnout?
Okay. So the eliminated positions that Director Monday sent out, those were actually clinical positions that had been vacant for at least 2 years, and in some cases even longer. So these were, essentially positions that we really struggled to fill. In some cases, we'd even struggled to fill those positions with agency staff. With that being said, I can appreciate the challenges that having those vacancies in your facilities places on staff, and the challenges that FMLA places on facilities. I would encourage whoever submitted this question to email me directly, and I can work with the Chief of Medical Services and your regional HSA and HSA. We can try to sit down and identify some possible solutions to provide you with some relief if possible.
Thank you. Our Director of Prison Operations is Mark Fairbairn. Good morning to you.
Morning, Rebecca.
Why doesn't security staff recognize Denver Women's as an intake facility, and that it costs the state money when intakes are not done in a timely manner?
So I can confidently say that the staff and leadership at DWCF do recognize these challenges of it being, one, both an intake facility and a full-time placement facility. So with that, there's a multifaceted mission that they have to balance. They have to balance the demands of intake with safety and management of that permanent positions and population that they strategically allocate resources to. So I can tell you that the leadership team at Denver is committed to improving efficiency. So if there's input on a specific obstacle or bottleneck that could improve or that's currently inhibiting the process of intake at DW, I encourage you to reach out to that leadership team at Denver to talk through that. And as always, you can either reach out to either deputy director or myself as well.
Associate degrees offered by Trinidad State and Adams State College, respectively, have offenders enrolled that have decades remaining on their sentence, as well as offenders doing life without parole. These are paid for by federal Pell Grants. How can this be justified as proper use of our taxpayer money?
So initially, the federal government launched the Second Chance Pell pilot program in 2018. And it was essentially to reintroduce Pell Grants for incarcerated individuals. So following that pilot success, the program fully rolled out in 2023. This full implementation made Pell Grants, which are need-based, available to all eligible incarcerated individuals, regardless of their offense or their sentence length. So we cannot discriminate based on that.
Thank you. Are there any plans to stiffen disciplinary sanctions for drug use among the offender population?
So first of all, I want to say that we do recognize the seriousness of the drug abuse within our facilities, and working with the Office of the Inspector General, we're actively exploring various measures that we could take to prevent contraband from entering. At this time, we are not planning on increasing any sanctions for current COPD charges. I do want to emphasize that through that documentation that staff are doing that holds those offenders accountable, it's very vital because it helps us ensure that, one, we're putting the right offender in the right bed and that we're getting them the right programming. And that's essential to maintain safety and security for our staff and for our offender population. And then furthermore, I just want to emphasize that in any kind of significant seizure of any kind of drugs or contraband, to make sure the shift commander is reaching out to the Office of the Inspector General, because in those cases, they could pursue criminal charges to hold that person accountable as well.
Thank you. Checkpoint closes at 4 p.m. for offenders. Having less than 6 offenders behind checkpoint after 4 o'clock, in which that area is staffed and is an essential post, is not cost effective. How do you respond to that?
Well, this is a hard one because there's not a specific facility attached to it. So what I would encourage a staff member to do is reach out to their custody control manager, their associate warden, or their warden to kind of speak about those concerns. Or as always, If they'd like to reach out to either deputy director or myself to talk through it, be more than happy to do that as well.
Thank you. What about salad bars as an alternative for our offenders? Have you considered that?
So all of our menus are planned and reviewed by our team of dietitians and our chief medical officer. And that's to ensure that we're getting the nutritional requirements and caloric intake. And then we also have to adhere to budgetary constraints. So all those salad bars would offer healthy alternatives. They're not very cost effective and present several food safety liabilities in this environment.
Okay, thank you so much. We'll go over to our Business Innovations Group Director, Ed Cayley. Good morning to you.
Morning, Rebecca.
EoMIS has several major functionality issues for facilities, one being offender property lists. A few examples: if a deaf offender has a vibrating watch and an call watch, property is unable to add both to their property list. The item descriptions are inaccurate to what the facilities actually call them.
So thanks for sharing this information first. I have provided this to our decorum team to review, and please anytime let us know if we can provide your contact information to the team so they can reach out directly to you, because I don't know where the question came from. But any updates like these can be accommodated. We just need to be aware of the changes needed. This actually isn't even EoMIS functionality. It's just data within the list. So it's just adjustments to that data within the program.
Thank you. And if this person would like to be identified, they're welcome to reach out to me or our DOC_questions inbox, and we'll get those answers where they need to go. Where can EoMIS suggestions be sent? Speaking of which, can we have working groups with members from all facilities be assembled to address EoMIS issues?
So this is a great question, especially based on the last one. Please send any EoMIS suggestions or concerns or issues that you encounter to the email decorum team. That's one word, no spaces. DECORUMTEAM @state.co.us, and one of our subject matter experts will respond to you. We definitely do use work groups and bring in additional SMEs where appropriate, especially as new functionalities brought online. And as we shift to post-project, because we're nearing the end of this project, changes to software will obviously include work groups to evaluate those and figure out best steps forward. We're also using multiple work groups currently on other projects, such as our new partnership with Recidiviz.
With the loss of Microsoft Office and programs associated with it, have you looked at how this will affect other programs that utilize pieces of those programs?
So yes, and I totally understand the concern here. There are certainly impacts anytime we lose or change software. While the exact setup may look different, our new tools also have spell checks, such as Google Docs. For incident reporting, I recommend that you type your draft in Google Docs and check your grammar and spelling there, then copy and paste that into PCDCIS. Sounds cumbersome, but that's actually how we originally used PCDCIS incident reporting in the first place. Also, keep in mind that we are replacing PCDCIS itself, so your process is going to change regardless of access to Microsoft Office.
Thank you. How are we supposed to have faith in the payroll UKG system when we approve our timesheet with our comp time cashed out and then a few days later that our comp time was dropped? Therefore, we must make a payroll correction every single time.
So I've shared this concern with our DOC payroll and UKG teams. It's my understanding that the issues related to this have been worked on by UKG and OIT, and known previous issues have been corrected. So please reach out to DOC_UKG @state.co.us so that we can review specific concerns with you and determine what may be happening.
Speaking of UKG, it was audited back in October. Will it be audited for November and December to ensure staff are being paid properly?
So this is a very important question. And first, I want to point out that the issue that was discovered for October pay was a data issue and actually wasn't a software issue at all and was not related to UKG. The discrepancy was identified and fixed in-house by DOC, and appropriate steps have been taken to protect against this data issue in the future. If you do have any questions or concerns moving forward, please reach out to the payroll team at doc_payroll@state.co.us.
What safeguards are in place to protect the Google Drive from being hacked?
So the Google Drive actually has similar protections to it as all of our systems and all of our data. It's protected under our state layered security, which also includes multi-factor authentication, threat detection, robust access controls, and physical security. The most vulnerable point for Google data is actually the share settings that we as users set. We need to remain vigilant about ensuring that we're choosing the most appropriately secure level of data sharing within the systems that we're using.
Thank you. Let's go over to Human Resources. Our director is Michelle Cottingham. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
If education is or can be used to substitute experience to meet minimum requirements for jobs, why is education not being considered when salaries are being offered, especially to those who have post-grad degrees?
Thank you for this question. There is a distinct separation between what qualifies a candidate for a position and what factors are allowed to determine their pay stub. AR 1450-60, which is our compensation policy, states that relevant experience is not an allowable factor DOC uses when determining pay. Instead, the department strictly uses direct and progressive experience to determine which step of the pay plan an employee falls into. The goal of the compensation policies is to apply a consistent standard for relevant experience across the board. While the education provides the theoretical background to perform the job, the pay steps are designed to compensate based on the actual time spent performing the duties of the role. So in summary, while your advanced degree is recognized as a vital component of your eligibility for the role, the salary offer step placement itself is calculated exclusively based on your years of direct and partial work experience found in your job application.
Thank you. As you know, several staff members are fluent in languages such as Spanish, which is extremely useful when supervising parolees in the community, and I'll add in all other areas as well. Is it useful? Is there an opportunity for extra pay due to bilingual skills similar to other metro areas? And does the department have a similar policy? If so, what are the details?
Another great question. So while some of our positions with the state of Colorado require bilingual abilities, such as Spanish fluency, fluency alone does not qualify an employee for a salary supplement. Pursuant to Article 32.2 of the Partnership Agreement, a language differential is only paid to cover employees who are required to interpret or translate as part of their job responsibilities as outlined in their PD position description. This differential is a set amount determined by the average percentage of time an employee performs those specific skills. If you believe these skills are necessary for your position, please discuss this with your supervisor and appointing authority.
Thank you, Director. Let's go over to Finance and Administration. Our new director is Mitch Carsons. Congratulations on your promotion.
Thank you very much, Rebecca.
Is any comp time over 60 hours mandatorily supposed to be paid out? And if not paid out, does the employee need to wait until the next pay period for that compensation to be paid out?
Yeah, thank you for this. And I first want to apologize. I'm not on camera. We just left the Capitol for our Capital Development Committee hearing, if anybody listened in on that. So on the comp time, this is dictated by AR 1450-14, and I'm going to read it so we have it. So compulsory time accrues in excess of 60 hours must be paid on the next regular pay period and should be processed when the supervisor enters that into the timesheet. So we do want to make sure that employees are doing that. If the payroll correction occurs after the 15th, which is when we process payroll, it will go on the next payroll cycle from that. So sometimes it depends on when the form comes in. But if you ever have a question about your comp time and how it's going to pay out, please make sure you contact the payroll team. They are a fantastic group and willing to answer any questions as it comes to that.
Thank you for clearing that up. If a payroll correction was properly filed and inadvertently comp time was not paid, do you have to wait until the next payroll? And if payroll does not respond, what is the next course of action?
Yeah, so this one falls in very close to the one above this. So if it's determined that the supervisor and the employee or either one failed to put in the comp time, we'll do a payroll correction form that will be taken care of and will be on the next paycheck. Typically after that, payroll will offer the employee an option about how they want to receive those funds. And if it's on the next payroll cycle, again, part of this is dependent on when the form is received and when processing actually happens. There is a state rule, though, that if you are owed less than 10% of the employee's base salary, that central payroll does not allow us to cut a check. So if it's over 10%, we have a little bit more freedom there to be able to do that. And again, payroll will work with you on that. If you have not received a response from payroll in about 24 to 48 hours after you have sent something, please make sure you reach out to the payroll manager, Carolyn. She is fantastic and will make sure the team gets to that and make sure that we get all of your answers taken care of as quickly as possible.
Thank you. We've had this question before, but I'll ask it again. Some of us older and near retirement employees are wondering if it would be possible for us to volunteer for furlough days, possibly either 1 or maybe 2 days a month.
So at this time, DOC is not looking at any furloughs, whether that is voluntary or involuntary. If we decide as DOC to change that and look at voluntary furloughs, we'll make sure that we communicate that out to the whole department. But as of right now, we are not looking at that or pursuing that.
Thank you, sir. Is there any way for administrative assistants that could be able to work overtime?
So FLSA, doesn't allow us to do this. So we have to follow that process. So that states when an employee must be compensated any hours over 40. This also links back to State Personnel Board Rule 3-25 for all employees that are covered under FLSA. And that really is what's guiding the process on that. And there's a number of factors that go into determining if something is FLSA covered or exempt. If you have particular questions about your position or if it falls under those categories, please reach out to me and we can have an individualized conversation about that. Absolutely. But mostly this is linked down to FLSA and the State Personnel Board Rule 3-25.
Thank you. Incentive discretionary pay was cemented into policy immediately following the COVID pandemic back in 22-23, compensating staff who are ineligible to accrue overtime with the ability to partake in overtime opportunities as needed. The compensation was capped at $300 per 8-hour shift, worked at $150 per a 4-hour shift work. Is there anything in the works to make adjustments to these caps to be in line with inflation? If not, is it a possibility?
So as of right now, we have not looked into this. We did look at it about a year ago and decided to keep the rates the same. This is a process we can look at and evaluate to adjust those on a regular basis. But as of right now, we are not evaluating that.
Thank you. I'll jump back over to our communications director. In a recent bout of inclement weather, the facility did not send out a message to all non-essential personnel for a delayed start. This was sent via text message from a staff member's phone instead. So half of the facility did not get the message and half did. Aren't we supposed to use the emergency messaging to set up for facilities? And how can we make sure this does not happen again?
So thank you, Rebecca. I think this might be a question better answered by Mark with prison operations, but I can certainly take a swing it.
I can take
Okay,
it.
thank you, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Rebecca. So we're currently in the process of going to a new system. And so there are some glitches in the system, and one of those are this is one that we recognize. So we're in the process of transitioning, and as we do that, hopefully that will take care of all that. In the meantime, I would encourage any staff member, if they're not getting those notifications, please, one, communicate it to your supervisor and your management team, because we do have systems in place interim as we go to the new system, and they can get you at it.
Okay. Will there be an evaluation and update to the training and recertification for defensive tactics? There are staff members who work side by side at headquarters. One of them has to do a 4-hour recert and the other does an 8-hour recert, but neither one of them goes into facilities. Why wouldn't we just adjust to the 4-hour recertifications?
Rebecca, I can take that one if you would like. This is Dave Lindsay with CTA. Thanks for the question, and we do understand that there may seem to be some differences in training hours for staff working in the same environment. It can seem inconsistent. This is based on usually a variety of different factors, also in coordination with the appointing authority when the person was hired, whether that was under prior to 2021 or not. But yes, we are looking at the requirements for defensive tactics and continually review that to make sure that it's consistent throughout the department and it meets the needs of the department.
Thanks. I'm going to jump back to Director Kaylee. When are we going to be moving to a grievance system over to EoMIS?
So that's a great question and very timely, actually, since we're approaching the end of our decorum project. But as part of making sure that we get all of our legacy systems replaced, we've actually looked at implementing the grievance system through a different vendor other than Marquee and the EoMIS platform. So Tyler Technologies, who is bringing our new banking system and has already brought in our new warehouse system for Canteen, will be bringing that software to us in the near future. What that means is that the grievance system will actually be on the tablets for the offenders, which should make this process a lot cleaner and easier to read and manage all the documents. So while we don't have a set date for grievance, we are kicking off the banking project early in the new calendar year.
Thank you. Director Stansel, I'm going to jump back to you to give you some final thoughts here as our questions are starting to wrap up. We have a couple of concerns about what steps are being taken to keep staff at Lyman safe La Vista safe in light of these threats. I know you talked about this earlier, but we've got a couple of questions in on that. To tag on to that, this person says, I just want to thank the executive staff for keeping the whole department in the loop and setting the record straight. It is very appreciated.
So thank you for the question. And yeah, so some of the things that we're doing, like I said, we have a collaboration going on with numerous law enforcement agencies surrounding La Vista, surrounding so any trips, any emergencies. If you're at La Vista, you've seen we placed some different people, some different personnel there, not because we've received a direct threat, but just as a precautionary to, in the event something does happen. We've staged media locations at SimHip on the other side from La Vista. So just in case the media want to come, that's where they're directed at. We've coordinated a lot of responses and had lots of conversations with SimHip's security staff. So there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes. We don't talk about it a lot because the more you talk about it, the more it's in the universe and the less effective it is. But there's a lot of things going on behind the scenes to keep you all safe. And if the threat arises or elevates, so will our response to that. We have daily meetings multiple times a day. We activated the Pueblo Sheriff's Office and DPS. We've had numerous conversations with them about responses to, different scenarios and things like that. So there's a lot we're doing behind the scenes because ultimately we want to keep staff safe and those that we incarcerate. There's just a lot of chatter out there right now. There again, like I said earlier, it's the unknown, uncharted waters for this type of incident. So we have people monitoring all kinds of things. So I guess the best answer to that would be there's a lot behind the scenes that you won't be able to see, but just know it's there. And I know this is our last chat for the year. So, I just want to take an opportunity to thank all of the staff that stuck with us. We went through a lot this year, like we did the year before and we did the year before. But it just seems like this year started off on a fast pace and just hasn't slowed down. So for those staff that's hung in there with us and dealt with the challenges through this year with us, I really want to say thank you, because we know we're not the only employer out there. There's a lot of great things that we offer, but I'm also cognizant there are other employers out there that offer things that, may be compelling to you. But for those that stuck in there with us, we want to say thank you. And it's not unnoticed. We notice, we know there's so many things that happen out remotely in the different areas, the different offices, the different facilities that we never even hear about because you handle it before it even rises to our level. And I just want to say thank you for that. I also want to take an opportunity to thank the newcomers to the team. You've joined the DLC family, and when you're family, just like with your real family, I know with my family, you may not get along with everyone in your family. They may upset you from time to time, but you're still not going to let anybody else mess with your family. So that's kind of how we are here. So welcome to the DLC team. And one of the things that I've talked to Alondra about, and I'm kind of putting the rest of the exec team on notice, so they're hearing this the same time you're hearing it. One of the things that I would like to do as this year concludes and the new year starts, I would like to kind of do some sort of documentation where we just kind of outline some of the things that we've accomplished, some of the challenges that we went through in the last year, just because it's easy to lose sight of those, because in this agency, we're so busy putting out the next fire that comes to us, the next negative media story, the next, parolee gets involved in instant after, they release. Those are always coming at us. So we're always working on trying to fix those. But there's a lot of great things that have occurred in this agency over the last year, over the last several years, that I think needs some recognition as well. So we're going to be working on that plan. I'm not holding them to a time frame yet because they're just now first hearing about it. Alondra had like a head start on it, but the rest of the team that I'm going to be asking for that information. But as we're building that, we would love for feedback from you all to say, hey, this is something that I think, we did well over the last year, or hey, this is something that I think we still need to focus some attention on next year. I would love to have a balance of pros and cons, because that's how we grow. We grow by getting feedback. We grow by listening to the voices of those that have a voice. So you all have a voice. This is an opportunity for you to have a voice. Like I said, I give out my number. There's a question that didn't get asked, but I'm going to address it. Someone asked, well, why do we sometimes say, when on these questions when they come in, if you want to email us, the question was, is that a way to identify the person it is? No, that's not why it is. Some questions that are asked are specific to that individual. And when we give a broad answer, the goal is to make sure we answer as many questions as we can. If you're asking a question and it's more specific to you, then it's hard for us to answer it on a huge format, like a platform like this. So we will say, hey, if you want, if that didn't answer your question, reach out to us. You've heard me say this, many have heard me say this. It's not always about where something comes from. It's about the fact of the information that's coming to us. Because oftentimes people assume that we know these things and we don't. And it's not always about who did it come from, or I don't really care a lot of times where it comes from, because it's not about that. It's about if something is going on and there's a systemic problem, then we need to address it. If it's an individual problem, then we want to get you the answer to address your individual problem. And sometimes we need more facts. And if we don't know who you are, then we can't look into your specific issue. So I'm totally okay with people being anonymous on these, if that's the platform you want to use. But I'm also encourage you to use your voice. If there's something you believe in that's impacting you and you want an answer for it, have the courage to ask that question. Because, and if you get punished for it, for asking that question, I need to know that, because that's not my philosophy. That's not the philosophy of your exec team. And that shouldn't be the philosophy of any supervisors out there. We're not here to punish anyone for using their voice. We're here to correct issues as they come, because that's how we find out about them. So with that being said, I hope everyone has a happy holiday. Stay safe, look out for one another, and we'll do this again in January.
Absolutely. Happy holidays to you and your executive team and all of you who are watching. As Mr. Stansel said, we will see you next year. That is January 13th at the 3:00 p.m. time slot. That is Tuesday, January 13th at 3:00. Until then, stay safe. Until then, bye-bye.